seats of power because we are kings and our words matter. The Bible acknowledges there is some pleasure in sin. I want to tell people today the truth. There is some pleasure in sin, but the pleasure does not last very long. It may be for just a few minutes, few hours, few days, few months, 1 year maybe, 2 years maybe, but the rest of your life, for the next 70 years, you will have hell on earth.
I will extol thee, O Lord, for thou hast lifted me up, and has not made my foes to rejoice over me. I will extol thee, O Lord, for thou hast lifted me up, and hast not made my foes to rejoice over me. Oh Lord, my God, I cry unto thee, and thou hast healed me, and thou hast healed me. Oh, I will extol thee, O Lord, for thou hast lifted me up, and has not made my foes to rejoice over me. I will extol thee. I will extol thee, O Lord, for thou hast lifted me up, and hast not made my foes to rejoice over me. Oh Lord, my God, I cry unto thee, and thou hast healed, and thou hast healed me. I will extol thee, O Lord.
Hebrews chapter 4. And let me read to you from verse 14 onwards. Seeing then that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession. For we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. We've been teaching on the subject of who we are and what we have and what we can do. It's a very broad subject covering everything that has been given to us under this wonderful dispensation called the New Covenant. The New Covenant began when Jesus died and rose again. There was the inauguration of the New Covenant. And the epistles written after the New Covenant was inaugurated is a legal document. Every epistle is a legal document telling us what we have under the New Covenant. And we've been covering several things. That's why I told you epistles are very important for the life of the believer. We need to read it, understand what is given to us. So we began to look at it from the book of Romans, and we began to look at many things. And today, or for the last several weeks, we've been looking at one particular gift that is given to us. That is, we have been freed from sin. We've been freed from sin. Now, we have to settle this in our mind. We are not trying to get freed. We're not hoping that one day we'll be free. We're not thinking that maybe some kind of freedom is available now, but it's not perfect and so on. No, we have been freed from sin. That's the Bible truth. Romans chapter 6 covers this truth wonderfully. Verses 1 to 10 tells us that we've been freed from sin. How does it say it? It says we have been dead to sin. We're dead, buried, and risen with Jesus Christ. Our old man is crucified. It says sin shall not have dominion over you. And then it says sin shall not reign in your mortal body. These are statements picked out from Romans chapter 6. What is our relationship with sin? We've been freed from sin. This is a legal statement. Consider it as a legal statement. Because a lot of people say, well, you say we've been freed, but where we are freed, brother, I'm still battling it in my mind. I'm still struggling with it. I'm still tempted by it. See, that's what I'm dealing with right now. See, it's one thing to have it legally, and it's another thing to have it experientially or practically. We have many things legally, but we don't enjoy many things practically. Especially so with the Christian people, with the Bible truths. Legally, so much is given to us, but in our experience, we have not obtained everything that God has given to us. I told you, in America, under Abraham Lincoln, freedom from slavery was granted. But for 100 years, experientially, they lived practically just like a slave would live, because, they thought, well, what am I? How can I all of a sudden expect to be totally free from all of this? And it's impossible, and it's unthinkable, That's the thing. To enjoy it and experience it, you got to do certain things. That's why Romans chapter 6, verse 1 to 10 tells us that we've been freed from sin. But verse 11 tells us, you must think in that way. That's a problem with a lot of people. They have not changed their thinking at all, first of all. They have not started to think that they're freed from sin. They're confused and muddled in their mind about where they stand with reference to sin. And then verse 12 to the end, it says, you got to do certain things. You should not yield your members, the body members, the mind members, your emotions, your will, and your thoughts, and your hands and your legs as instruments of unrighteousness. You should not yield it. You should yield it as instruments of righteousness. So you got to do these things. See, it is one thing to have it legally, but it's another thing to bring it in reality. In order to bring it in reality, you got to believe what is yours legally and think in line with it, and then begin to act in a certain way to make it yours. Amen? That's where the problem is. Now, last couple of weeks I've been talking about temptation, because a lot of people say, well, brother, you say I've been freed from sin, but where? The temptation is still there. It's plaguing me. I'm still having to battle with the temptation. So let's talk about the temptation, and that's why I began to read Hebrews chapter 4, verse 14 to 16. I've been covering this. Because here we are told that we have a high priest who is touched with the feeling of our infirmities, because he has been tempted in every way like as we are, yet without sin. A very powerful statement. Here is a person who has been tempted in every way like us. Everybody say every way. Not in some ways, in every way. Whatever temptation you're facing, the temptations of sin I'm talking about. Whatever temptations you're facing, that he has faced. That's what it means. Yet without sin. So you got a big expert now who is there as a high priest. He's a big expert because he has been tempted, but he never sinned. And he now says, now you can come boldly to the throne of grace to obtain grace and mercy in the time of your need. You can come because there is someone there who's ready to help you. He's a big expert. He's already finished his earthly course. He has succeeded. And he's sitting there at the right hand of the Father as your advocate, as your helper, and as your high priest, so that he may help you. So in every temptation, we have a great help. This is what this verse is saying. We have someone to help us bring victory in every temptation. We've been freed from sin, but the temptations of sin are still there in this world. And we have to take victory over it, and in order to help us in our victorious walk, there is a high priest. That's what we are told. And we have covered a lot of things, territory there also. But today I want to go a little further. Today I want to talk about how to keep from yielding to sin. It's a very important topic for the next 2-3 weeks. We're going to talk about it. How to keep from yielding to sin. The yielding is the problem, right? Now, I told you, one of the biggest mistakes that Christians made in my days when I was growing up is, they said if you're tempted itself, you're bad. So we couldn't go and tell anybody, look here, please pray for me, I'm tempted. I got all these thoughts. They immediately looked at you funny and they said, you are a devilish fellow. Why are you tempted like that? What kind of baptism you received and what kind of spirit you received, and are you born again at all? If you are a proper Christian, then you will not have temptation. Some of them say, for 25 years, I never had those thoughts. Amazing, These guys, how they lie. They say, no, I never have any temptation. If you're having temptation, that means you're bad. There is something wrong within you. Unless there is something wrong within you, you won't have this temptation. So I particularly used to feel bad talking to these fellows about it. So every Sunday, we put on a big drama. We had a Sunday clothes that we put on Sunday. That's Sunday clothes. And then we put on Sunday smile and went to church and very quietly listened to everything they had to say, then prayed, asked the pastor to pray, didn't tell him anything. No, you can't tell this problem. Because no pastor would tell me in those days, don't worry, you have a high priest who's touched with the feeling of your infirmity, who's been tempted just like you are in every way, but yet without sin. You can learn from him. He is there to guide you and walk you through in a victorious... No, nobody told me like that. They told me, what? Sin? Sinful thoughts? Then there is something wrong. You see, sinful thoughts itself, something wrong. And the temptation coming to you itself makes you a sinner. Now, if temptation makes you a sinner, then Jesus would have been a big sinner, because he's tempted in every way, like as we are. But Jesus did not sin. Jesus was without sin, the Bible says. You can't say that Jesus sinned in any way. He was untouched by sin completely, yet was tempted. So it is possible to be tempted, but yet without sin. Now, this is a great discovery that I have made, that just to be tempted is not sin. Everybody goes through temptation. To yield to temptation is what makes it sin. So the point is how not to yield. How can I keep from yielding? That's what we're talking about today. Now let's start, with Proverbs. I find Proverbs very interesting. Proverbs chapter 5. That's where we will start. Now, Solomon is writing these words. These are words that come from him, but these are words his father has taught him. This is his father's advice to him. Who is his father? David. Who is David? We talked about him last week. He's the guy that went through all that stuff. He's a big expert also, but not without sin. He's a guy that actually sinned, and by sinning became an expert at these things. By sinning, learned some lessons, some very horrible lessons that affected him so much, his family so much. He lost so much by sinning. By one sin, he lost so much. And he could tell you story after story. And now he wants his sons and his children to be careful. And he has told them. And Solomon remembers that, and he writes that. He says, my son, attend unto my wisdom, and bow thine ear to my understanding. In other words, he's saying, listen to my experience. Let me share with you what sin can do to you. He says, that thou mayest regard discretion, that thy lips may keep knowledge. For the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. Well, he knows it. Experienced man talking. Now, one of the things I feel is that they didn't tell us right in those days was, they said that sin is horrible. It's so bitter, it's no good. Don't ever go near it because it's bitter. It's tasteless. It's no good. But then when we slightly tasted it, it was very sweet. Now everybody looks like they don't know. So I will today preach to the roof and to the floor. I will not look at you to embarrass you in any way. I know some sermons you have to preach without looking at the audience. Maybe I'll look at the camera and preach for a change. The thing is, they told us, sin is so horrible. Why do you want to sin? That's such dirty little thing. You don't want to even touch it. It's just so horrible. You'll burn yourself and everything is bad with it. That's what they told us. But when we tried to taste a little bit of it, it was so sweet. And it was just like honeycomb. And smoother than oil, sure. See, the thing is, the Bible doesn't say that in sin there is no pleasure. The Bible says in Hebrews chapter 11, talking about Moses, it says, the pleasures of sin are for a season. It says Moses did not want to enjoy the pleasures of sin, which is only for a season, but chose to suffer with the people of God. So the Bible acknowledges there is some pleasure in sin. I want to tell people today the truth. There is some pleasure in sin, but the pleasure does not last very long. It may be for just a few minutes, few hours, few days, few months, 1 year maybe, 2 years maybe, but the rest of your life, for the next 70 years, you will have hell on earth. That's what sin is all about. It draws you by giving you the taste of the honey, sounding so sweet and tasting so sweet and pleasurable. And once you go and taste it, then for lifelong you taste nothing but bitterness and sorrow and sadness and failure. That's why I talked about last week how sin is a big deceiver. It's the trickiest thing in the whole world, So he says, for the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil, but her end is bitter. See, he's gone through that. He's tasted the honeycomb, the smoother than the oil experience. And then he said, oh man, then it's bitter. You find out only later, it's nothing but pain in the neck, Bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. How would you like someone to put a two-edged sword in you and keep cutting you into pieces all your life for years to come? That's what it's like, he says. And he's warning young people. He says, her feet go down to death. Her steps take hold on hell. Lest thou should ponder the path of life. Her ways are movable, that thou canst not know them. I don't want to concentrate on these verses because I've taught them on Tuesday nights, verse by verse, I think. Let's go on. Hear me now, therefore, O ye children, and depart not from the words of my mouth. Now this is the verse I want to concentrate. Verse 8. Remove thy way far from her, and come not nigh the door of her house. Come not near the door of her house. Everybody say far. Now, how do you keep from yielding to sin? Stay far away from it. That's what I want to talk about today. How do you keep away from sinning? How do you keep from being trapped? How do you keep from yielding? Stay far from it. Everybody say far. Now, the way you say it, it must sound far, Everybody say far. That's how far you want to stay from it. I want the thing to go in. That's why I do some things, Don't mistake me. But I want it to get in. You want to stay far from it. The man has tasted it and he knows it. He has experienced it. He is warning the young people. He says, stay far from it and come not near the door of the house. Because if you came near the door, see, some people are like this. It's all right to look but not touch. Don't touch. But it says that's wrong. If you come near the door, you will get in next. don't come near the door of her house, because if you allowed you to come near the door of her house, you're finished, my friend. Then it takes only one more step, you're inside. Don't even come near. In other words, if you want me to tell it plainly, don't even come anywhere near. Then in chapter 7, he gives an example of a guy who failed. Now, Solomon himself failed. After all the instruction, he went and did it 1,000 times. Exactly what he was told not to do. He ended up doing. See, people say, well, brother, see, Solomon had all this instruction, but what happened? He finally sinned. You got to understand. That's why, one of the greatest things in the Bible is the doctrine of sin, concerning sin, what the Bible teaches. But so many people don't want to deal with this fact of sin at all. The doctrine of sin is one of the most profoundest things, because sin is, like I said, sin is what is killing people today. Every evil, everything that is wrong with the world today is because of sin, my friend. Therefore, you need to understand sin and its terrible nature is destructiveness. You must understand it. And one of the greatest Bible teachings is the doctrine concerning sin. And one of the things concerning sin is that it is full of deception. Sin is full of deception. It creeps in from all sides. It creeps in the holiest moment. It creeps in. In Sermon on the Mount, when I was teaching on the Sermon on the Mount, I showed how in prayer also sin creeps in. Prayer is one of the holiest activities. You're supposed to be talking to God. But there Jesus is saying, when you pray, don't pray to be seen by men. See, sin comes in there. When you're praying, the devil ruins your prayer by telling you to pray so that you can be seen as a great praying person by everybody else. So your whole point of praying is not so you can talk to God, but so that people can see how great a praying person you are. Oh, how well he prays, how wonderfully he prayed. Then it defeats the whole purpose. Your prayer is a waste. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't achieve anything, because the whole purpose of prayer is defeated. Sin has creeped in right there. Sin is about that pride, self-exaltation. That's what sin is all about. And while praying, it creeps in there. That's the nature of sin. So, sin nature is there in Solomon. So no amount of instruction will do. In schools and other institutions, they have moral instruction, which is good. But moral instruction will not keep you forever from sin. It will scare you enough to keep you for some time away from sin. Because they tell you you'll go to jail if you do this, you get a disease if you do this, and this is not good, it'll ruin your happiness and all of that. So it'll keep you away from it. But then the sin nature, as long as it's there, it gets the better of you. It'll get you one of these days. Because the nature is there. It is deeply embedded. It is rooted deeply. So salvation is not just enrolling in a church membership. Salvation is taking that old nature out, the sin nature out, and installing a new nature inside. That's what salvation is all about. That's what new birth is all about. It's not church membership. It is being born into the family of God, born again. It is being regenerated. It is getting rid of that old heart and getting a new heart. That's what salvation is all about. So as long as a new heart has not come, no amount of good teaching will do. Now why am I teaching? Because you got a new heart. That's why I'm teaching. A person with a new heart, with a holy heart, with the nature of God, is able to follow the teaching. But a person with a sinful heart, a heart of wickedness, is not able to follow it. You can teach him and he'll agree with it, but he's not able to do it. That's the condition of the sinner. But the condition of the believer is that he hears it, he delights in it, and he wants to do it, and the Holy Spirit is his helper. He is able to do it when he applies himself to it.
In your presence, there is fullness of joy. At your right hand, there are pleasures evermore. You surround us with your favor, O Lord. The earth is full of your goodness. The earth is filled with presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand there are pleasures evermore. You surround us with your favor, oh Lord. The earth is full of your goodness. The earth is filled with your exceedingly abundantly, far above all we could ever ask or think. Exceedingly abundantly, you give us all things to enjoy. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand there are pleasures evermore. Surround us with your favor, oh Lord. The earth is full of your goodness. The earth is filled in your presence. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand there are pleasures evermore. You surround us with your favor, oh Lord. The earth is full of your goodness. The earth is filled with your exceedingly abundantly, far above all we could ever ask or think. Exceedingly abundantly, you give us all things to enjoy. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand there are pleasures evermore. You surround us with your favor, oh Lord. The earth is full of your goodness. The earth is filled with your exceedingly abundantly, far above all we could ever ask or think. Exceedingly, you give us all things to enjoy. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand there are pleasures evermore. You surround us with your favor, oh Lord. The earth is full of your goodness. The earth is filled exceedingly abundantly, far above all we could ever ask or think. Exceedingly abundantly, give us all things to enjoy. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand there are pleasures evermore. You surround us with your favor, oh Lord.